Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and get started again. We're going to start really quickly. We were asking both the candidates to give about a minute opening remarks to tell us kind of who they are and why they're running for the Port Commissioner for the two positions. And then we'll dive into about 5 questions. We're going to do about 20 minutes. And we're going to do about 3 environmental and 2 on the social justice. So, Mr. Marzano, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, good evening, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Dick Marzano. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this a little better? Yes. Okay. Once again, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Dick Marzano. I am currently Port Commissioner position 2. I was born and raised in Tacoma, lived here all my life. Went to Stadium High School, and that's when I first worked on the waterfront. While I was going to college, I decided at the same time working on the waterfront, decided that's what I wanted to do as a career, and I've been doing it ever since as a working longshoreman. I'm married. We'll be celebrating 47 years with the same woman. I don't know how she put up with me, but that I like. 2 kids and 2 beautiful granddaughters.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me okay? Thank you to PLU and UPS for putting on this great event. Thank you to all of you for showing up and being here. I mean, this is a fantastic audience, and it's great that people are interested in the politics of the city because they do affect all of us. And that's why I'm running for the Port of Tacoma Commissioner, and I'm running against Dick. I'm running for the people. I'm running for you. I'm running to give a voice to the people that have historically not had a voice in the port. For 100 years, industry has spoken that people have not had representation. I'm going to change that. A little bit about me. I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I have 2 young children, a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. I live less than a mile from the port. What the port does affects me and my family every single day. The pollution, the dangerous industries that are there, the noise, the traffic, those are all things that I'm going to address, and I'm going to address for all of us. I'm also a lawyer by trade. I've been practicing for over 16 years. I represent individuals and small businesses, and I feel that I give them a voice in the legal process and the justice system, and that's what I want to do for us, the people. I want to give us a voice in the port. I want us to be able to take back the port. No more decisions that put profits over the people. No more methanol, no more LNG, no more dangerous fossil fuels being stored in our port and being this common denominator. No more of the same. I'm there to change the culture. I'm going to give us a voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Mr. Marzano, I'd like to start with you on one of the topics of interest, the LNG facility. As you may have heard I mentioned earlier today, we have a kind of an environmental issue both globally and locally, whether you analyze it on the local scenario or you analyze it on the global scenario. Locally, we know we're talking about 2 tow ships, we're talking peak shaving, 2 tow ships would be on shore power, so we're not going to be burning diesel or LNG at that point. Really, the only savings we're going to see is when they're transiting to and fro, maybe an hour or 2 a week of savings. Whereas in the meantime, that facility is going to be spewing out carbon dioxide continuously throughout the year. So really, we're seeing a net loss environmentally, locally. And when you look globally with the methane leaks, the scientific studies that we've seen come out about methane leaks, where we see a 3% methane leak rate, anything over that, natural gas is actually worse than oil and coal. We're seeing rates, some let's say it's around 4.5, 7, 17% different basins where we get natural gas production. So we have a net negative, whether you're looking locally or whether you're looking globally. So I'd like to understand your position on the LNG and kind of if it's for, which I believe it is, how do you justify that environmentally?
Okay, thank you for the question. First, I do support the LNG facility. And there's several reasons, but my main focus is the fact that Tacoma, and if you look at the history of the Port of Tacoma, I heard it mentioned earlier that we'll be celebrating 100 years. And during the whole time of the shipping industry, if you look at the history of the shipping industry, it's ever evolving. It's changing all the time. There is no doubt, and you can talk to scientists and engineers, that LNG is a cleaner burning fuel than the present diesel bunker fuel that they presently use. Now, we can be short-sighted and simply say, okay, that's the only shipping line that's ever going to use LNG. But the facts is that the bigger container ships being built right now are being built so they can have LNG. Your new cruise vessels, the cruise lines, the Carnival lines, MSC, are being built with LNG capabilities because it is a cleaner burning fuel. We could simply say, no, that's the only shipping line that will be calling there. That'll be the only one utilizing LNG, or we can eliminate LNG and stay with the diesel bunker fuel that presently is being used. And two things are gonna happen. One, you're gonna see a diminished movement of cargo through the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Seattle, because where they're gonna go is where they can, when they're needing the LNG, they're gonna go to facilities of that. Or you're gonna see Tacoma grow like we're growing right now, but at a slower rate, but having still the dirty diesel fuel that shipping lines use right now. It is not the answer to end all answers, but it is a step in the right direction, I believe. I think if you look at, I've heard mentioned that the ILWU, which is on the waterfront every single day, has supported the LNG facility because they're tired of breathing the diesel fuel that is being emitted through the shipping lines that are presently calling there. So I believe in the next 15 to 20 years, you're gonna see a great amount of shipping lines, if not all of them, using the LNG facilities coming into Tacoma.
So you view this as just kind of a foothold. This is an initial entree to the LNG market. You envision that would actually grow in the Port of Tacoma.
Yeah, if you look at the entire shipping industry worldwide, they're all moving in that direction. You're seeing that in Norway, Rotterdam, one of the biggest ports within the world, is LNG is making it almost essential that all shipping lines that call in there. So I think you're going to see that in the next 20 to 30 years, all vessels, especially starting right now, are being built through LNG.
I guess the part that I still don't understand is, I get the burning cleaner locally, right? I do understand that. It does burn cleaner. The challenge is when you look at the system-wide impacts of it, right? When you really look at how that natural gas is produced, all the way from the fracking wells all the way forward, when we see those leakage rates above 3%, we know that environmentally it's actually worse off than if you go burn coal for that matter. So I don't understand how you justify it environmentally. I get the kind of the marketing pitch of the burns cleaner, but I don't understand how the system-wide impacts are any better. I actually think they're worse as a result.
Okay, not being an engineer, as I said, I'm a longshoreman. One of the things that I've learned is that probably 50% of the LNG is coming through fracking. And I also know that the engineers, the different technologies, the innovations that are going to be coming are going to be hopefully reducing what you just mentioned with the 3%. I'm not a fortune teller, I can't tell the future, but I do know that if we as a community, and if the shipping industry as an industry says this is the route we have to go, and you have to make it better, they will.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I want to clarify some things first. I think it's important to understand the situation, the problem. First of all, this LNG facility, this 8 million gallon massive size structure that's going to go into the port, the size of the Tacoma Dome, it's as tall as and half as wide, bigger than anything we have in the port and more dangerous than anything else that's ever been there before. It's there to fuel two ships that already converted to these LNG powered engines. Two ships, that's what it's for. And Commissioner Marzano has talked about the industry moving that way. I disagree. I know that there are ships converting to LNG, but it's not a bridge fuel. It's not the future. It's a fossil fuel that we're trying to get away from. We want to go to electric. We want to go to a hybrid. We want to go to biodiesel. We want to get away from these fossil fuels. LNG is not the way of the future. This is a lease for up to 50 years. It's a fossil fuel footprint in our backyard for 50 years. The port's trying to do this greenhouse gas reduction strategy. It's like all their environmental strategies. They have no teeth. They don't do anything. They don't look at the industries that come into the port and say, what are you going to emit? What are you going to add to the carbon footprint? How is this going to affect our health? How is this going to pollute the environment? They never do that. They say, Toad, oh, you need these two ships? Okay, we'll help provide a facility that will provide you the LNG, hence the PSC facility. That's what they're into. They're into the industry relationships. It's about the money. The tote ships can get LNG from other sources. When they, on their Puerto Rico run, on their Jacksonville run, they have barges that come in and bring the LNG. I'm not in favor of the frack gas, and I believe it's 100% frack gas now. I think that's where the gas is coming from, and it's coming from Canada, and it's coming over hundreds of miles of pipes that will leak, that will affect the environment, And the port doesn't care about the social consequences or the environmental consequences that happen globally or happen regionally. They're just interested in what's happening at the port. These ships should already all plug in at the port. There's no excuse for the port, all the ships that come in, not 100% being electric, plugging into the port. That's a problem. You want to protect the longshoremen, you make sure the ships are plugged in so they're not emitting any diesel. They're already required to use low sulfur diesel in the emission controls area, which is 200 miles outside our port. 200 miles, they're supposed to do that. Tote's been getting waivers. They've been applying for waivers with the EPA, so they don't have to comply with that. They've been polluting our environment because they don't want to pay for low sulfur diesel while they can get these ships up and running. We've got to change this. We've got to stand up and say no. And I'm tired of getting all these brochures from the port telling me how great LNG is, how great this industry is, how great the jobs are for us, and how they're doing great for the environment. It's time for a change.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Let's move on to Mr. clause. Let's move on to the interim regulations, if you would. Mr. Davis, we'll start with you on this one. So we know the Planning Commission is working on interim regulations. The current incarnation, I believe, still has that the existing fossil fuel industries could do expansions, but we have interim regulations on new fossil fuel industries. Can you give us your stance on the interim regulations, and would you support the expansion of those to include the existing facilities as well?
I am absolutely in favor of interim regulations, and the reason that we need them is because we know historically the Port of Tacoma is not going to make decisions that stop the fossil fuel delivery, the fossil fuel storage in the environment. And you can just look at the methanol facility, you can look at the LNG facility. You don't have to look far in the past to find out what the port's direction is. The city of Tacoma needs to step up, and it is, with these interim regulations, which would freeze putting more fossil fuels in the port, putting more bulk storage into the port. And that's what we need. That's the action that we need to take right now to stop these fossil fuel bulk storage facilities that endanger us and pollute our environment from coming into our backyard. So I'm in favor of that. I'm also in favor of not expanding the existing facilities, because otherwise what you'll have is new companies coming in, joining with the existing facilities and joint ventures, and just getting in the back door what they couldn't do in the front door. We need to freeze this now. There are already applications from different industries trying to get in, to get grandfathered in, so that they're not subject to this. They want to expand. Everyone's becoming aware of this, and they want to expand, expand, expand. The one thing about the sub-area planning interim regulations that I have expressed concern about is there also is a proposal back from the port. And by the way, I was at a public meeting where the port didn't take a position opposing the interim regulations, but then the next day they went to the City of Tacoma planning board. So somehow behind closed doors, someone made a decision to oppose the interim regulations, and they came out hard and fast against them. And now they've all come out to oppose those interim regulations, saying that they're divisive. But that wasn't at a public meeting that I was at. But the one thing in the interim regulations that I expressed concern about is the stop to any non-industrial uses in the port. So that means no hospitals in the port. That means if Paul Allen came and say, hey, I want to help create a homeless community in the port, create structures, create jobs, create health centers, mental health institutions on the vacant land that's out there, we wouldn't be allowed to do that. I know that they're only interim, so it doesn't mean that long-term that'd be the case, but it does cut us off the ability to change the industries that are in the port, because these interim regulations would require that everything be heavy industrial.
Thank you. Mr. Marzano?
Yes. First of all, a couple things that I think need to be cleared up a little bit is that we have mentioned to our executive director on numerous occasions that we do not bring anything with regards to the export of coal or oil to us as a commission. That has been stated many, many times. With regards to the interim regulations, when they were first brought up, the city approached us about getting together for a sub-area plan. And the first thing that I said at that time was, we're all for it. We have no problems with it. One of the questions that was raised at a commission meeting was because the Scout tribe was then asked to go into it, because when it was originally asked to us, it was just us in the city. And one of the commissioners asked about legality, would it do any effects to the Indian settlement that was done in 1989. Once we had that clarified, we said, okay, now we can move forward. My concern with the interim regulations, and I've seen it in the past of what the city has done, is once they put them in, they're there permanently. The port is willing to and going to contribute up to $500,000, if not more money, And I look at this as we have a clean slate. Let us look forward and how we move forward together as a tri-party agreement of how we can move forward. When you put interim regulations, you are actually putting permanent regulations. They've showed that in the past.
Thank you. We'll go over to a social justice question.
Mr. Davis, how would you characterize the port's relationship with indigenous communities, and what would you do to strengthen that relationship?
The current relationship is very bad, and all you need to do is go to a Port of Tacoma Commissioner meeting, the third Thursday of the month. It's a public meeting. You go there, and you're going to see members of the tribe speaking out against the port, against what the port's doing to their lands, what they're doing to the environment, and not including them, and not giving them a voice. That relationship is terrible, terrible. And when there's an opportunity to give the Puyallup tribe a seat at the table, to be a partner in something, the commission refuses to do so. There's no flag in the Port of Commissioner room for the Puyallup tribe, which is very significant to the tribe, very significant for them to have a seat at the table. They don't have that representation on the commission. They don't have the representation in that room. So that relationship now is almost irreparable. We need to change the culture on the port to try to repair that relationship. And I'll tell you, the members of the Puyallup tribe that I spoke with, they're unsure. They're unsure of anyone now to come in and say, hey, we want to extend this friendship hand, because they've heard it so many times over and over again. And all they do is they get lied on, they get cheated on, and their land taken away from them. So they are extremely frustrated.
Thank you. Mr. Marzano, would you mind speaking to that as
Oh,
well?
no, I'd love to speak to that. We've had, when Chairman Dillon was alive, we used to have annual meetings. I have sent letters to the chairman. I have made phone calls to the chairman reaching out. So we can sit down, so we can discuss things of mutual interest, and also sit down and figure out what we disagree on. That is still open. My relationship with the chairman, with members of the council, I think is good. I think with our Port Commission is good. But it takes two sides. We can go and sit in their front door, and hopefully they'll let us in. But I'm all for that. I think what we do down there, and when we go back to the history of what we did, it's been always beneficial on both sides. As with any two parties, you'll go forward, you'll have disagreements, but you move forward for the betterment of all. And that's what we'll continue to do. And I'd like to use this public forum for the same thing of reaching out to the tribe and saying, let's sit down and discuss the issues. But to say say it hasn't been a good relationship, I think is blatantly untrue.
Thank you very much. Turning to another important question related to the port. Mr. Marzano, similarly, what should the city's relationship to the Northwest Detention Center be in the long term?
What should the city's relationship should be? Well, not being a representative of the city, one of the things we have to look at as a community, not just with the detention center, but also with the homeless, is how can we help the less fortunate? How can we help the people that are being put into a circumstance beyond their control by an administration that doesn't, know what the hell they're talking about? And that's a concern that I have personally. It's not me as a port commissioner. I would be more than happy to sit down with the city of Tacoma, the city of Fife, surrounding cities, doing whatever we can to help the people that are there, not knowing what their future holds. I think is a discredit to how we treat other human beings.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, would you like to respond?
Well, I think that it is up to the city, in some respects, what can happen with that detention center. We all know the detention center has horrific conditions, and if you don't know that, you should read about it. You should go down to the detention center. Every night if you go down there, you'll see people camping out because their loved ones are there. They don't know if they're going to see them again. They don't know if they're going to be deported. Those people don't have rights of representation. Things need to change at the detention center because it's bad. What we can do as the port, we can be a sanctuary city. We can make sure that those people are protected down there, that we're not asking for ID from them. The city of Tacoma can regulate the urban area that's the port. It can adopt land use regulations that stop overnight stays. We can kick the detention center out. I know there's some lease issues we're gonna have to handle. There's some property ownership issues, but we can regulate the detention center out. We can do that. We can make those changes. We as the commission should fully support something like that.
Thank you very much. We'll do one final question. We'll run a little bit behind here, so we'll ask you to be brief if possible. This one deals with kind of the vision of the port and jobs. So we kind of have a narrative going on in the community that we want jobs or we want the environment. And I really hope we can get beyond that. Right? I really hope we can figure out what does a sustainable job look like. Right? We don't want to, we know we have a storied environmental past. We know we don't want to go back there. So we want to figure, like it's the same question that I did pose to like the mayoral candidates. What does a good job look like? How do we characterize that? How do we, what does it look like, and then how do we attract that? Mr. Marzano, could you address that?
One of the things that I'm proud of the fact is that the jobs that are happening down at the port pay anywhere from 15 to 20% over what you would call the average living wage. I think it's critical, and this is one of the things that we have to look at. We talk about the environment and jobs. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can always be both. I'm proud of the fact that the port, since I've been on the commission, has bought and cleaned up over 400 acres, put some of those acres back to productive uses, putting jobs in. I heard about the city of Tacoma's garbage that the mayor candidate mentioned. The Port of Tacoma, along with the Tacoma Citizens for a Healthy Bay and the Tacoma Audubon Society work together. It's called Global Hiding right now, and it's brought back habitat and wildlife. It's things that we do, and we're proud of doing that. And while we were doing that, we were making and creating more jobs. It can be both, and it will be both. One of the things that I take pride in is the fact that besides being able to help create thousands, and I mean tens of thousands of jobs, families that rely on what we do at the port, we're also cleaning up as we go. We bought the Kaiser facility. The Kaiser facility was an eyesore. We had the big, 500-foot thing that we tore down. And the reason we did it, because no other agency would take that on. We cleaned it up, we recycled numerous things that came out of that, and at the same time, it's now in productive use. We bought the Weyerhaeuser chip facility. It's now a productive dock where we are having members work on that facility. So it can be a win-win for both the environment and jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
I'm not sure I heard in Commissioner Marzano's answer to the question there enough on the environmental side. What happens at the port, so everybody understands, the Port of Tacoma is one of the largest Superfund sites in the U.S. It's been that way for a long time. It is an environmental disaster zone. Commencement Bay is extremely polluted. The soil is extremely polluted. And what we do, this is how we clean up the environment. And it's going on right now, and it repeats itself constantly. Industry comes in, they degrade the environment. Either the port has leased to them or sold them the property, and then the port will the lease will terminate or will buy back the property. The port will buy back the property. You then cap the environmental degradation that's below the soil. You cap it, and then once it's ready again, you build over it. Then that industry pollutes the environment, you cap it, and you build over it. And then you repeat that, and you do it over and over again. It's time to change that. We need to stop bringing in these industries that are polluting and degrading our environment. We live here, our children live here, our families live here, our futures live here. We need to do our part to stop these industries. What I want to do is bring in clean, green energy tenants that create jobs, real jobs, 14 jobs for every one fossil fuel job. So we need to change that conversation, bring in the right industries in the port, say no more to these fossil fuel polluters. What does a family wage job look like? $42,000 is what you hear a lot. That's hard to support a family on $42,000. That doesn't sound like a lot of money, but they better be paying at least that amount. And we need to create more jobs and more opportunities. The LNG facilities, that creates 16 to 18 jobs. That's not a lot of jobs for a huge swath of land that could have been hundreds of jobs that paid more than $42,000 a year. We need to do a much better job with leasing to the right tenants in the port to bring this economy back.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, how about a round of applause?